Thank you all for having us here today to chat a little bit with Jenna. I'm super excited. As I mentioned, I'm Joe Kotz. I work at Videoamp. Jenna, I have a brief intro. I've shortened the one you sent me.
Yeah,
She has quite a track record, but Jenna's worked everywhere from startups to Fortune 100 insurance company now. She's Chief Marketing Officer. You lead development of the company's overall marketing, brand, et cetera. I think that what's pretty impressive about Jenna is she has done a number of things there, starting in digital, has led the transformation of the brand through social, digital, direct marketing capabilities, in-housing, which we'll talk a little bit about today. And that team oversees 80% of all consumer-facing work that they do at Liberty Mutual. Also, because I'm a big fan, I did a lot of research on this. Jenna, you helped launch Limu and Doug, which I think everyone in here is probably a big fan of. So we'll talk a little bit about that work as well, and helping really drive, I think, the growth of Liberty Mutual over the past 10 years. She's also the proud owner of her Cannes Lion, which I think is pretty awesome as well. So outside of that, Jenna, your career track record, you want to just introduce yourself and tell the audience a little bit about you?
Sure. Yeah. Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me. Had my whole career in marketing, tech startup agency, and Fortune 100 insurance company. I thought it would be a layover. It's been 10 years. I've done everything, from social, digital, brand and advertising, all the in-housing that we've done over the years, and been CMO for the last 4, which I think might make me one of the longest tenured CMOs.
Yeah. So I think on that point, I would say you might have cracked the code a bit in that regard. Doing a little research, there's a lot of stats around CMO tenure thrown around, but as of one of the most recent that I looked at, I think you are 130% to goal on being a CMO in time and role. Can you maybe share a little bit with us around kind of what are your secrets and how you stay ahead of the curve on that front?
And can you maybe not tell my CEO that, Steph? No, listen, insurance is a super long-tailed business. I think continuity matters a lot. Selfishly, I think continuity matters a lot. But we're charged with, building the brand. Insurance is a commoditized category. It's a need-based product. You don't want insurance. No one here is thinking about insurance, I can assure you. It's the only thing you pay for and you hope to never use. It's really price-driven, super high spend, very competitive category. And so we're charged with just making sure the Liberty Mutual brand stays top of mind with consumers. When consumers are shopping for insurance, it's always the first couple of brands that come to mind. And so that's what we're charged with doing. We are in a very competitive category. As you probably know, you can't go anywhere without seeing insurance advertising. And so we're outspent 2 to 3x. And the entire marketing org is sort of behind this idea of punching above our weight and being a little bit more of like a challenger brand in the category. And so that means outsmarting the rest of the competition, being as efficient as possible. We do a lot of testing. We test every single ad before we produce it, just so that we can feel really confident it's going to perform for us. And taking calculated risks, or smart bets, what we call them. So not just throwing stuff at a wall and seeing what sticks, but really being thoughtful about the work that we put into market.
That's great. I am actually thinking about insurance. We just purchased a house, so I need new insurance. So it is top of mind for me, so thank you.
Maybe we'll talk about it.
We sure can. Do you do construction insurance? That'd be great. But let's talk a little bit more about your role as a challenger brand. I think, for people in the room, we've got Progressive, Geico, Liberty Mutual, State Farm, and Allstate are probably the big 5. Arguably there's a few others in that category. Collectively, that's about $6 billion in marketing spend. $1 billion in marketing spend.
Annually.
Annually, yes. And you, as you mentioned, right, you're getting outspent 2 to 3x by a number of those brands. I think you might be kind of 4 to 5, depending on the category across the board, but you certainly have done a lot. So what are maybe some of the smaller things you think about, even though you have a large budget, about stewarding that and the different types of things you're doing as a challenger brand to help make sure that you're driving the impact that you need to?
Yeah, so obviously marketing's charged with driving profitable new business growth. That means driving the brand, specifically building unaided awareness, and then of course, driving new business, the more high intent in-market shoppers. Our split on our media spend is about 60-40, 60 on the brand side. So That's a long-term investment. We know that. We know that a dollar we're putting into brand today is not going to generate a policy in 3 months, 6 months, maybe not even a year. But we know that, like I said, in the category, people shop the brands they know, and so we need to increase that unaided awareness, and you do that over time. Carriers with high unaided awareness, they're shopped first, they're shopped the most, and they have the highest likelihood of the consumer actually converting. So super important. And there, we're heavily invested in TV. We've since shifted as consumer consumption behaviors have shifted into streaming and CTV and all of that. And then on the acquisition side, it's about 40% of our spend really targeting, high intent in-market shoppers, looking at things like, cost per bind and, lifetime value of the policy and acquisition ratio and all of those things.
That's great. I think one thing that was really interesting when we were getting to know a little bit more about what you guys were doing was some of the in-housing you've done and what you've developed there to help your brand. Can you maybe share with the group kind of how you've approached that, what sorts of things you've taken in-house and the things you've seen from that?
Yeah, we've done a lot of insourcing over the years. It's probably been a 8-year journey at this point. We started a lot with creative. We now have about 80 to 85% of all of our marketing creative is done in-house by our in-house agency, the Copper Giants. Warren's here today. He leads that team. And that's been an interesting story in and of itself, right? So, when they first started bringing work in, we did social, like display, things that were a little bit more turnkey, and now they're running one of our TV advertising campaigns done entirely in-house. And in order to continue to develop that talent, which was a tough part, right? Like trying to get creative talent to come to a Fortune 100 insurance company and work on one brand is not super exciting. And so we've actually expanded them to have an external offering. So they've started to work on external clients outside of Liberty just to continue to retain them, keep them engaged, develop their skills. And then on the media side, we started with digital, social first, then the rest of digital. And now we do everything in-house except TV and direct mail.
Great. And I think one thing I'd love to dig a little bit deeper on the in-housing, it's, finding good people, I think is tough, especially in today's world, right? We've got pretty steady employment across people, people aren't moving around a lot. So when you're thinking about the types of people that you want to come work for you, what do you look for in someone to come work on your team?
Yeah, it's a good question. Driven, highly motivated hand raisers. I call them hand raisers, like people who, will be really proactive. Highly collaborative. I say this all the time, but there's like not one thing you can get done at Liberty Mutual, an organization of our size, that's just one person. So you need to be able to navigate the organization, build relationships, build trust, all of that. So collaboration is huge. Intellectual curiosity, right? Like someone who's going to, come in, question the status quo, and bring something to the table. Track record of success, of course, and then I've been really thinking about bringing folks in who've worked on other brands I admire to really help us elevate our game.
That's great. And I think one thing that we talked about that was a bit interesting is we live in a completely different world today than I think when you started. I forgot, maybe it was Matt from TripAdvisor who was here earlier, said he started 4 years ago. I think you started just about 4 years ago in role. So what have maybe been some of the challenges or things you've had to adapt to as you think about how large of an in-house team you have and developing talent that's on the ground in Boston with you, in New York, maybe completely remote? How do you guys manage that at Liberty Mutual, and how do you manage that with your team? Yeah,
so I started in role 4 years ago, and then like 5 or 6 months later, we went to permanently working from home for 2.5 years, and that was a bit challenging. I think like the way we were able to create an engaged and rich culture was like that in-person time. I used to do a flash briefing every Thursday, 15 minutes, stand in front of the whole department and just cascade information. So we were all like aligned, open lines of communication. There was opportunity for question and answer. And so like to pivot all of those things, all those norms that we had in a virtual environment was of course very tough. We did it. And now we're on the other end of it. And We announced that we're going to be hybrid as of September, so right after Labor Day. We announced it in May. It was very unpopular. It's still unpopular, so we're working through it. But yeah, we're 2 days in office. You could pick the days, and we've really spent a lot of time just like figuring out norms, so that when we are in person, it's purposeful and it's not just a box checking exercise, but like you're coming in and you're lining up and coordinating your calendar to have, you know, the most in-person meetings and team time and collaborative stuff that you would do together, versus maybe on the days you're at home, that's when you do your heads down time, or, you know, meetings where folks are remote anyway. So it's been a learning journey, and I would say we're only a month in, so we're still figuring it out. And I've been talking to a lot of other business leaders who've been at this longer, in this like hybrid world, and just getting best practices and tips from them.
That's good. And I know when we chatted about this, I think the idea of purpose is so important. Not just I think from Unilever today we heard about purpose-driven marketing, but also like giving your team that purpose, right? If I'm gonna ask you to be here, there's a reason that we're going to spend this time together impactfully. So I thought that was great insight from you on how you guys have thought about that along the way. I'm going to change gears a little bit. I think, you mentioned obviously COVID kind of changed things in the past year. We've seen a ton of change. You guys spend a significant amount of dollars in top of funnel, right? So you've got some impact showing up today. You've got the writer strike that has kind of change the landscape as you think about TV. You've got streaming services where, Paramount is building out a great platform, right? But it's starting to look more like a Google or a Facebook or a TikTok that's a walled garden. There's underlying changes in things like measurement along the way. Your world is not easy. So I would ask you, if you could change one thing about your job, about the industry, about your team, whatever it is, to make things better for everyone, what would that be?
Ooh, that's a good one. I might go really specific, and maybe it's more unique to us, but I was talking earlier about building the brand, and about 60% of our spend is there, and we know for insurance, to really drive that top of mind awareness, we need to reach consumers a certain amount of times per month, and easy to do on TV, less easy to do and manage across different platforms, especially as like streaming and CTV in that space is super fragmented. You have new players emerging all the time, and measurement can be a little bit challenging. So if I know it's hard, I don't know if we'll get there, but like if I could snap my finger and have something done, I would probably want to get a better view of reach and frequency across our entire brand media spend.
Right. And I think as part of that, you mentioned kind of 60-40 is maybe the rules you guys have developed. Kind of how do you manage that with your teams? Is that longstanding? Is that ebb and flow based on the business? Does everyone agree with that perspective along the way?
Yeah, very ebb and flow, I would say. Insurance, much like a lot of other categories, going through some hardship, I would say. Current economic environment, inflation on the rise, like we're paying out more in claims, we're having to raise rates. You've probably all felt that as well. And so putting a lot of pressure on our business and putting a lot of pressure on profitability specifically. And so this year has been an interesting one because we've actually had to pull back on growth. And so what we're sort of doing is defending our brand spend, right? Like we know we need to continue that for the long-term investment there, but on the growth side, we've been pulling back. And I think there's benefits to having a lot of that done in-house where you can be a little bit more nimble. We also have like our media mix modeling, our efficient growth process all done in-house. We do it a couple times a year. We might increase the frequency, but that sort of allows us to know if we have an extra dollar to spend, where to spend it. If we have to pull back, where to pull back. And yeah, it's challenging. And I think like on the brand side, just even educating like our CEO and that level of leadership of just like what that brand spend actually delivers, and getting them on board with you're not going to see an immediate return on it, but like these are sort of the brand health metrics that we care about for the long-term like future success of the company.
That's great. I'm going to take a pause. We've covered a lot so far. I'd love to maybe turn it to the audience to see if there's any questions for Jenna before we go into the bonus round.
Oh, yeah. Just speak loudly.
Thank you. I was just writing it down. So as you mentioned media mix modeling, I have two questions. One, who's on your team that's handling that? And in the last year or two, have you hired up an analyst or something to help out? And then two, to be able to convince the C-suite of what you're doing sounds fascinating, and it sounds like also like good job security. Like, hey, give me a year and then you'll see some results. But all joking aside, what are the leading indicators or kind of the milestones that you're still able to point to show that it is working?
Yeah, love that question. I'll tackle the analytics, media mix modeling one first. So about the same time that we started insourcing all the digital media buying, we also started ramping up our marketing analytics team. We're now about 100 people. Also have a data science team, modeling team, et cetera, that are helping sort of augment that team and their capabilities. So that was a multi-year journey, but I think as soon as we started spending more in marketing, it became even more critical that we were able to show what we were getting in return. On the second question about you were educating the C-suite, right? That was the question. I think on the brand side in particular, we can point to unaided awareness growth, right? Over the last 10 years, we've had the highest growing unaided awareness growth in the category, and that's despite being outspent 2 to 3x. So we've really punched above our weight, and we've shown that story. I also think there's an educating component to it too. Our CEO and most of the C-suite they're insurance people, right? They're actuaries, they're analytics people, they're data scientists themselves, and they've come up through the ranks. And so marketing is not their specialty, and sort of it's on me and the team to educate and share and bring them along on the journey. And that's been an interesting one, not even just on the media side, on the creative side too, of trying to educate them on why we're doing certain things and why we're making certain decisions and why an emu and Doug together, and that's going to do well for the brand. So it's been fun, but yeah, winning with data and showing them any kind of data is going to go a long way, but there's an education component too.
Thanks. Back to your point about educating the CEO. Have you found that the educating of the chief financial officer is giving you more leeway to manage with procurement than other folks who have to work with an agency and it's kind of this is how much we pay our agency, it's this percentage of media spend versus internally, and then you can find an attribution model to give credit to your incremental yield that you generate off of marketing?
Yeah, so to be clear, we do insource, we have insourced most of the work. We do have external agencies for our TV media buying. Limu and Doug is done externally, and then our direct mail. So those programs are managed externally. On the value of the in-house agency, we're actually able to show back if we were to do the work that's done in-house with an external agency, it would cost, so it's cost savings, or cost avoidance, I guess. And we actually have them log hours, much like they run very much like an agency does, so we know exactly where there's extra capacity and how we can manage resources. And so I think they operated about half the cost of an external agency last time we checked. And so we're really good about managing resources internally, and then of course, working with folks in procurement to make sure that the external agencies we do have, that we're getting the most value out of the cost there.
I have 2 questions. First one's culture related. So you've gone hybrid, and I thought it was interesting that you guys are not requiring the same day in office. We're all dealing with this coming back, but how do you maintain that people are scheduling those meetings? Because what if Tom wants to come in on Tuesday and Lucy wants to come in on Thursday? So that's my first question. The second one's totally different. So if you want to go in first, yeah.
I'll go first then. We're still working through this, still early days. I know there's a plugin on Slack that the creative team is using to sort of log which days they're going to be there, and then they stack the meetings on those days. I know other teams are just have a standard calendar type of thing. They put it on the calendar when Sally's going to be in or Rachel's going to be in or whatever. But I don't think we have a universal approach yet. We're still trying to figure that out too. I think the 2 days is good because it does give people flexibility, especially our marketing department, heavily female, very young, new parents, so giving them the flexibility if they have to do drop-off, pickup, whatever, kids' games, like just allowing them to pick the days has been hugely popular in an unpopular hybrid decision. So I think folks are very grateful for that. So I think we'll maintain that, at least in marketing, where you can pick the days, but we are trying to figure out ways to coordinate it.
It's great that it's team-based too, because like it would be like the creative team might need something that the analytics team doesn't need it that week and whatnot. Okay, so the next question is, with all the access to the data, the analytics, the holding yourself accountable, are you feeling a pull away from upper funnel, traditional, less measurable marketing? And is there an addiction almost to showing we did this, we got that, versus that kind of brand building that built companies like Liberty Mutual over many decades?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because like we're in the categories in this like really interesting time where inflation is driving up the cost for repair, the cost to repair your car, your home. And so like in insurance, we don't know the cost of goods sold when we sell the policy. And so if I'm selling Warren a policy today, I have no idea if I'm making money off him. We have a bunch of models and, you know, like predictive analytics that is going to tell me like maybe I'm going to make a good return on him, but I don't actually know. And so because inflation is, you know, is so high and we're like, you know, feeling the brunt of that, we've actually pulled back on growth a little bit more this year. And so we've been able to like maintain the investment on brand. But we know like our competitors have spent in brand for decades before us, billions and billions of dollars. And so we know that the long-term investment will pay off. So I don't think we'll ever see a day where we're like, nope, no more brand. Let's all put it in lower funnel stuff. It's just we're sort of balancing like, you know, what's right for the org at the time. And right now we're not in growth mode. We're in like restoring profit mode. And so building the brand is actually like a more longer term investment so that when we do get back to like growing at an accelerated rate, we'll have the benefit of that.
Great. I'm going to have you run all the way across the room. There's a question down here.
Where are we going? Jenna, I know your core business is marketing and selling insurance, not running a creative agency. Can you talk to, it sounds like you guys have been successful. So what are the keys to making sure when you build an internal agency, not only does it deliver that cost savings, but it also delivers a return on effort and you're not putting in so much into management of that agency that it becomes a time suck?
Yeah, it's a good question. You know, we didn't always have it figured out. I would say in the early days when we were like, all right, we're going to build an internal creative agency, we're like, it'll be run by a creative. And then we quickly found out that, no, maybe actually we want, you know, more of an account person to run that. So that was like error one. Then I think like we, you know, early days, we just mapped one for one how an external agency is run. And then we realized like, we don't need all of those functions. We didn't need an account team because like the marketing managers effectively play that role. We didn't need a strategy team because we had a marketing strategy team. And so like there were certain functions that we just didn't need as much of. And then we needed more of some other ones. Like we needed more project managers, right? To like fill that void of not having account managers. And so it's been an evolution. I think we have the structure in a really good place. The way the team is structured now, it's like you have your creative department, you have your production department, you have project management, and then ops. And that's been pretty successful for us. And, you know, I think we'll probably continue to operate in that way. And like I said earlier, you know, one of the aha moments was like, okay, if you're going to attract all this great talent, we have great talent in-house from like all of the top agencies. And my fear was like, oh, they're going to come here for 2 years and then they're going to leave. And so in a play to like really retain that strong talent, keep them like, you know, engaged and working on different things, because there's only so much we can insource for Liberty Mutual. We did start having an external offering. They've done some work for Harpoon, for a couple nonprofits, and they're continuing to build up capabilities and build up a network to do more work outside of Liberty. And because we manage like their hours and how they're working and what they're working on, like we know exactly when, and we do good planning in terms of the work that we're giving to the in-house agency. We kind of know when they're going to have excess capacity, and we're just planning that for, you know, the foreseeable future so that they do have a little bit more to look forward to than just the day-to-day Liberty work.
Are you surprised at all at the mileage in terms of the being able to be memorable and also kind of being almost like a true north for the company?
Yeah, it's funny. Like, we were a little bit late to the game of like figuring out that, in a category that doesn't have a tangible product, I can't sit up here with my bottle of water in a 30-second spot and you know exactly what it is. You need to leverage brand cues, and we were a little bit late to the game. So we knew, 2017, that we needed to develop probably a jingle, probably branded characters. And the challenge was like there were already so many established ones that existed already. And so like, how do you do that and have it be unique and ownable? And so we did an RFP at the time. We had like 6 or 7 agencies in the mix. We had like 25 characters, everything from like a teddy bear to a dinosaur who talked. Like, we had everything. And the brief was really like, we think people don't want to overpay for insurance, right? Like, it's a commoditized category. People want good coverage and they want it at a good price. They don't want to sacrifice good coverage. Like, they don't want low quality stuff, but they want to know that they're getting a good value. And so we briefed it in, and Limu and Doug sort of played that role of like the buddy duo that think it's a crime to overpay for insurance. And they're sort of one part familiar about it, right? The buddy cop thing that's been used, tried and true, movies, television shows, et cetera. But there's like this unexpected element of like this guy with this bird who doesn't talk and doesn't fly and doesn't really do anything. And it's been interesting, like how quickly it picked up. So we haven't even had it in market 5 years. It'll hit 5 years in February. And, it's Limu and Doug have been on SNL twice. They've been on Jeopardy, New York Times crossword puzzles a couple times, and Halloween costumes. Like, even the year we launched it, we saw Halloween costumes popping up all over, social media. And so it's been an interesting thing to watch. And I think it gives me at least a lot more like responsibility, a feeling of responsibility to like figure out where we take it next, so that it doesn't just become wallpaper or become irrelevant, but really continues the momentum that we've already had.
Can you share with us if what is next without revealing any secrets? So I've seen some new people, some new characters pop up, and
yeah, so we're being
where are we
really really thoughtful about it, but want to start introducing more backstories of the characters, like sort of where they grew up, how they came to be where they are. More characters that are in their lives. You've seen the wives, you've seen Doug's son, Limu's son. So really rounding out their stories a little bit more. You'll definitely see that. And then I think, looking at like how do we make it a little bit more relevant, more, timely, more in line with what's happening in pop culture. And obviously there's you walk a fine line there, making sure that it strikes the right balance. But you'll see that we've had good success doing movie integrations, movie partnerships over the last couple of years. So you'll see Limu and Doug in doing a movie partnership coming up in the spring of 2024. But just continuing to evolve the campaign, giving them more meaning, more purpose, but making sure that we're preserving what's worked so far.
It's great. I think one thing that resonated with me when we talked about this, and I will share candidly, a number of years ago, I got beat over the head with Liberty Mutual ads on YouTube. I think you guys have gotten a little better on that.
Because our jingle has 4 liberties in it?
It was a number of years before you were in your role. But I think one thing you shared is like you feel a sense of responsibility to entertain, right, with the creative. And I think that is something that's was really interesting for me as I went back through the story and what's there, that you can bring the brand forward and you can have the high frequency that you need to have the relevancy and the breakthrough in that category, but you're doing it in a way that people are kind of like, oh, I want to see what's next. For these people, almost like a small 30-second episode of a little show for those folks along the way, which I think is great.
Yeah, we very much treat it like a series. We even call it like series. I think we're on series 6 now, or season 6 or whatever. But I think like insurance is a serious business. Like there's no doubt about that, right? And we know that, and that's our business, and we care about it a lot. But like consumers don't want to think about the serious side of insurance. They don't want to think about getting into a car accident, losing their house, or any bad thing happening. And so you've seen the category sort of embrace humor as a way to break through and keep the brand top of mind and sort of distract you, entertain you, give you a little bit of a laugh, instead of talking about what we're actually selling, because I think it's a little bit too much for people.
That's great. Any more questions from the audience? If not, I have one more question for Jenna before we. I think we go to break next. So wrapping up early, everyone probably would appreciate. So, any other questions? All right. So we would not be doing ourselves a service if we didn't talk about AI today. So I took a little different spin on it, and I actually just went and asked ChatGPT 5 rapid-fire questions to ask you, so we could get to know a little bit more about
right.
you. You ready to see what we came up
Can't
with?
wait.
What is your favorite book or podcast that has a significant impact on your professional life?
Probably Grit by Angela Duckworth. If you haven't read it, it's fantastic. But the whole premise is basically like, you don't have to be naturally good at something. Like you can, if you just put your mind towards something and are persistent and are dedicated to it, you can master anything.
Grit.
Grit.
Great. Okay, it's a book.
Yep.
Great. If you could have dinner with any historical figure, who and why?
It's maybe a unique answer, but probably Margaret Thatcher.
Yeah.
Just because super strong female leader, male-dominated environment, and I think she gained the respect of everyone around her just because she was super smart, well-informed, visionary, and just frankly worked harder than everyone else around her.
Awesome. What is one piece of advice you wish you could give to your younger self when you were just starting your career?
This is oddly the easiest. So I, like many women, have suffered from imposter syndrome. It's sort of hard not to. And early on in my career, I remember actually when I first got to Liberty, being in all these meetings, and I'm like, God, these people are so smart. Why are they so smart? And my mentor she's still my mentor today, but at the time she said, there's a difference between intelligence and knowledge. Like just because you haven't experienced something or had the opportunity to learn it or had exposure to the same facts doesn't mean you're less smart. You'd probably come to the same or better conclusions if you just had the time that they had to be exposed to it.
That's great. What is your go-to productivity hack or daily routine that helps you stay on top of your busy schedule?
I love this question. I live by my calendar. Everything goes on the calendar. All personal things, professional things, personal to-dos, professional to-dos, all on the calendar. And then I'm a big to-do list. Make a daily one. It's written. Every single day, a new one. And I always put something on there that I've already done just so I feel really productive.
That's great. It's a checkbox, like therapeutic for you.
So
like
you can cross it right off.
Yeah. That's great. All right, question number 5. This is the last one. Share a surprising or little-known fact about yourself that your colleagues, or those in this room, might not be aware of.
Kind of like an adventure traveler, thrill seeker.
I thought you might bring that.
Yeah, so I've done skydiving, bungee jumping twice. I did shark cage diving in South Africa, and then I went to Antarctica earlier this year and crossed off all continents. So now I'm looking for my next one. I may be less adventurous than I was when I was younger, but still have a little in me.
Is there, I'm sure there's a bucket list, but is there a next trip? I mean, you've done all 7 continents.
Well, I've seen the South Pole, so I'm like, now do I have to go see the other pole?
You might. It's good. Well, thank you all. Thank you all very much for the questions, and thank you, Jenna, for today. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much.